Hey everybody, welcome to Right On, the podcast from Final Draft. This is the show where we talk about all things screenwriting. Today we have an interview with Clyde Phillips, showrunner of Dexter: New Blood.
Don't be ashamed. A lot of folks get queasy at the sight of blood.
It gets to me every time. It's a scary world out there. Monsters walk among us. I might still be a monster, but I'm an evolving monster. What are you doing?
Are you Dexter Morgan? It's me, your son.
Harrison.
Host Sharday Sellers and Clyde discuss how he pitched the new series to star Michael C. Hall, how Dexter's character has evolved in this new story, how he would have ended the original series, and more. Check it out.
Welcome back to Right On, everyone. I know I say this a lot, but I actually am really, really excited to talk to this creator today because I'm such a huge fan of this series and the revival. I'm here with Clyde Phillips, showrunner of Dexter, new and old. Hi, Clyde.
Hi, Sharday. Hi, everybody.
I am so grateful to have some time with you today. First off, I do want to know, we were looking at your space that we're interviewing in today, and you were going to tell me a story, but I wanted to make sure that everyone heard it. So this is a pandemic office?
Well, what happened is we were writing the show for a year in Los Angeles, in North Hollywood, in an office building on Riverside. Then the pandemic came, and we had about 7 or 8 episodes written, and we're breaking the last 2. The pandemic came and the corporate rules were we had to break up the room. So then I went home to my rental house in Hollywood Hills and everybody went to their respective homes. We tried doing it on Zoom and it was kind of difficult, particularly after we'd been together for a year and we had a room full of whiteboards. And then luckily my number 2, Scott Reynolds, lived near the building that we had been in. And now that the building was completely empty, it was safe. So he went in with his laptop and would point it, the camera of it, to the various whiteboards. And I'd say, wait, roll in number 6. I want to see what Deb is doing, or let's get that out of the way and let's talk about the kill and let's go back to board 7 or whatever it is. And I realized that if I'm doing this in my house, I should be with my family. So I left California and came here to Martha's Vineyard, where my wife and daughter were. I don't remember how long ago it was. And then they quarantined me down here in this guest room. And so then I turned it into, right now I'm talking to you on my desktop, but over there is my editing suite, which I was just on this morning doing a sound design for the 7th episode. And over there is another laptop where there's Zoom, and I have all my people in front of me. And then beyond that is a television. And through a system called Clearview, it's like being in the editing room. And then I'll say every once in a while to the editor, can we please stop? I have a note here. I have a question here. Can we try this? It's not as good as being in person, but it almost is. It's become our life now. And plus now, as many writers and showrunners know, you get out of bed and you're in your office. I was supposed to go to France to do an interview. And then because of COVID, didn't do it. So I did it as a Zoom. So instead of driving 5 hours to JFK and flying 8 hours to France, all I had to do was shave and shower here. And I did it from the same spot.
I'm good without giving away a spoiler in case this is in it, but I want to make a light joke. Do you think Dexter would be affected by a pandemic? Like, how would his kills differ with social distancing?
It doesn't give anything away. We don't play the pandemic in the show. Look, Dexter's a human being. And so sure, he would be affected by it and his world would be affected by it, but I don't think it would stop him.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, where there's a dark passenger, there's a will, there's a way.
Yes. Oh, okay. So this is a good segue because, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. What I first want to start with is in the room during pandemic, how do you build this room? Knowing that the show already has a history, has a very strong fan base, you already have characters set up. Who are the writers that you're choosing for this room? People who know the show, people who are new to the show that can bring fresh perspective? Like, how does that all work?
Well, that's a doubly interesting question, Sharday, because when I got the phone call from Gary Levine, the president of Showtime, time to go meet with Michael because Michael was interested in coming back. I went to go see Michael in New York and pitched him how I saw the show. And he stood up and said, I love it. I'm in. I called Gary Levine from the car on the way back to the airport. The whole thing took one day. And Gary's a busy guy and he snatched up the phone. He said, well, and I said, Michael loves it. He's in. And Gary said, go hire a writing room. Now, that doesn't mean go write a pilot. That means you got a show. Now I had to hire a writing room and it was during the WGA ATA standoff. So nobody had agents. I didn't have the benefit of the advocacy of agents. So the room ended up being Scott Reynolds, my number 2, whom I mentioned before, who was in the first year of Dexter, my writing assistant, and then climbed the ladder to being, I think he was co-EP by the time it ended. And I also hired another former writing assistant of mine who had worked on two shows for me as story editor and whatever step was above that, maybe producer, and hired him as a supervising producer. Hired another writer friend of mine, Warren, that was Tony Saltzman, hired Warren Shue Leonard, who had just finished doing a show for me. And so I could just call him up, and hired the guy who was my writing assistant at the time, brought him on as a staff writer, and he brought on somebody else, as a good friend of his as a staff writer. Tony had a friend, David McMillan, who had done several shows and became our co-producer. And there's this writers group that I'm involved with online. And I mentioned that I was looking for somebody at a certain position. And then I ended up with Kirsa Rain as I think she was executive story editor. I'm not sure. And then my attorney, as he was negotiating my deal, said that he had, and attorneys don't get people jobs, but he said, look, I've got an unusual situation. I've got a woman coming out of a partnership, a writing partnership has a great script. And if you want to take a look at it, I think she'd be great. So in one day, I got that script, read it, Zoomed with her because we had the same lawyer, hired her. Showtime never got in the way. They trust me. I've been with Showtime for so many years, between the original Dexter and Nurse Jackie. There was one agency that had signed with the Writers Guild, and my former writing assistant, now staff writer, called them and got a submission from them, and I hired her, Ali Salerno, to round out the staff. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. I'm trying to go up and down the hall. Whoever I'm leaving out, I'm sorry.
Comes back. Yes. Staff writer.
That's right.
Well, I mean, it's just very serendipitous. It sounds like all the pieces were in the right place and the right timing, especially with Michael being the one to go, yeah, I want to do this. I'm going to ask something and feel free to tell me to shut up, but I just want to know, was the rumor that maybe some fans were disappointed with the finale? And then how did you address that in the room? Did you approach it differently for this revival?
Well, Sean, I'll be happy to talk about that. It's no secret that the final season was a great disappointment. And in fact, if you look up worst series finales ever, Dexter will show up in every top 10 list. I had nothing to do with it. I'm not saying that to alleviate the blame. I'm saying I had nothing to do with it, meaning I had nothing to do with the decision making. I wasn't in the room. But we felt collectively that we owed a very faithful fan base another shot. And, we premiered last Sunday night, and it was the fan base was there. We were the number 1 premium cable debut of the year. So, I mean, I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of what we put together.
I think the reason why Dexter resonates, I'm a huge, huge fan. One of the reasons why I really love the show, and I'm wondering, not just in terms of Dexter, but as the showrunner itself, is the feel of Miami. I've only been in Miami once, and I'm raised in Michigan. I live in LA, but it's something about how the show writes the city of Miami and the color palettes, but also the locations. And it just makes it feel like you're absorbed in this world. I want to know what's the secret to that on script, on page, because I'm always fascinated with Dexter and how it literally is world building within this sub-reality. But it feels like a whole different world within Miami, but it is Miami.
Well, it was Miami. It's not Miami anymore. The thing about Miami is, one of the great things about Miami is it's such a melting pot. It's so racially diverse, and which was reflected in our original series. And also it has a certain saturated pastel deco look to it. It's miserable to shoot in the summer. It's just so hot and wet, But so we wanted to go completely the opposite from that. We situated this show in a fictional small town called Iron Lake, New York, which we shot in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. We basically shot the whole show in Massachusetts. and we're doing all the posts in New York. We wanted this to not be Dexter season 9. We wanted to acknowledge to the audience that indeed time has passed. Dexter has changed. The look of the show has changed. He's living in a tiny town, population 2,760. He works in a fish and game shop, which ironically, he's surrounded by rifles and pistols and other weapons of minor destruction and deer heads and all sorts of trophies. But the thing about it is, so the palette changed. Marco Siega, one of our most cherished directors, came aboard as an executive producer, director, and he changed the whole aspect ratio of how the show looks into movie size. And Showtime went along with that. The most important thing about his being in Iron Lake is that he's blending in and there's so much less temptation for his Dark Passenger. There's 2,700 people in this town. I mean, if he had moved to Chicago or something, he would not be able to be pushing away his Dark Passenger. He would yield to it. And here he's able to control it as much as he possibly can. Who are we kidding? This is Dexter. People are going to die. To quote Michael C. Hall.
And what about, for me, I feel like everyone has their own Dark Passenger. Just Dexter seems to be a little bit more friendly with his. I want to know, for this revival, what approach did you come with for the Dark Passenger? And then are we still going to see glimpses of Harry and his guidance through this?
Yes, that's kind of a 3-part question, so I'll answer all 3 parts. Okay. First of all, I agree that we all have our Dark Passenger. And we've all, or everybody I know, has lain awake at night and said, you know what, that guy that fucked me over, that guy that was mean to my daughter, or whatever it is, I want to go do something to that person. And I got to march right into his office and take him out. But we don't do it because we're not sociopaths and we're not psychopaths.
Well, I was just wondering how is building that Dark Passenger for this revival? You said we're in a new town. Is Dexter more accepting of it now? Because it took 8 seasons for him to kind of get there.
First of all, I remember another part of your question. His conscience, where Harry was his mentor, we decided to make Deb, Jennifer Carpenter, what played his sister, his conscience. So and we all have a little pixel in the corner of our brain, no matter what we're doing, that's always asking questions. Is that a great idea? Should I be doing this? I was jogging yesterday and I was thinking about, I got to get my car serviced. I couldn't just enjoy jogging on the beach in Martha's Vineyard. And so she is that voice. And because it's Jen, she plays it the way she played Deb in the original series. So she's aggressive and foul-mouthed and takes no bullshit. And Dexter, Michael Hall described them as an old lived-in married couple because you're living with this thought process in your brain. And we, in the writing room, we would have to remind ourselves all the time. And even when we were shooting, wait, Deb's not real. So she can't open that door. She can't hand them the tea. He doesn't have to hold the door open for her. And because her character is so familiar to us that we were occasionally writing her as a real person and then had to realize that and pull it back. And I made that mistake myself a couple of times.
How do you address, when you're breaking the room and you're breaking down episodes with your writers, what is the arc for this season that you need, emotional arc and then physical arc, if there are anything, or goal that you need Dexter to go through? How do you pitch that to your writers? This is how he starts. We need to get him to X.
Well, that's interesting. It's almost in reverse. I mean, first of all, to unreverse it, we come up with a theme. And the theme of this season is fathers and sons. We also know, and this takes weeks. So this doesn't happen the first day. This takes weeks. By the time we start really breaking down the show, we know how it's going to end. And it's what I call putting your nose against the whiteboard where the ending is and walking backwards. And all these doors are on either side, like a hotel hallway. And each one of those doors is an episode. And then you get back to episode 1, room 1, and you start building the show. And then we come up with I wouldn't call it a Bible, because a mini Bible, a 10-page pitch. And then we pitch it to Michael and to the network and to Showtime and get their notes, incorporate them into the show. And again, we know who the big bad is, the John Lithgow, the Jimmy Smits. We know who that's going to be. And we also know what the character dynamics are and where the show is going to end and how the show is going to end. And we then start going from hotel room 1 to hotel room 2, all the way up to the end. I'm a very strict outliner, and I require complete outlines from each of my writers. and which actually makes it so much easier for Showtime and Michael to digest these outlines, understand what the show's about. But also, if I'm a rather quick writer, so when I wrote the first script, I had some time, so I would just go down to Warren was writing the second script, and I said, why don't you give me some scenes from that outline? Or I'd go to somebody else and say, why don't you give me a couple of scenes? Because the outlines are so tight, and that's where all the heavy lifting is, that the writing is fun. I also write novels, and my outlines on a novel are 100 pages.
How many pages outlined for Dexter?
About between 12 and 15.
And are they like paragraph, like novel style?
They have scene headings.
Okay.
They have slug lines, interior Dexter's cabin, exterior Iron Lake Library, whatever it is. And then there'll be a paragraph for however long it has to be. And sometimes we'll put dialogue in there just to make it lively and more interesting to read. And so that whoever is reading it understands the intent so that there aren't any surprises.
No, I love that. I'm trying to get better at that myself.
I believe it's crucial. I have some author friends who don't outline, and I just cannot understand it.
Honestly, it's just my procrastination and trepidation, but I'm working on it. I'm inspired by you and your team because obviously what you're doing works because you put on great television. So if I can learn from you, and hopefully all the listeners can learn from you as well. I have a question, Clyde. Okay. Is the philosophy of I'm only going to kill killers, is that still a thing?
Yes. Dexter kills people who he has vetted. Again, back to his code. We've gone back, I think in the latter years of the show, he had broken the code and had broken the trust of the audience. So we're back to the fact that everybody who dies, quote, I'm doing quote signs, deserves to die. Certainly nobody deserves to be a serial killer.
I'm so glad you said that because I have my own little theory that since the finale, I know you weren't responsible, but I just work with me here because I've been thinking about this for years. If Dexter has his own code, shouldn't he be the one on his own table? Like he literally fits his own code. Does he not?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you saw when the show ended, the last episode ended, Kristen DeSantos from Entertainment Weekly called me. And she had moderated Comic-Con with us, and she'd been a great friend to the show, and said, "How would you have ended the show?" So I told her under an embargo until after the show ended, the way I had seen it. And had we done it, we would not be having this conversation right now. Was that Dexter? Whatever the episode is, it plays out, and then Dexter goes, and the audience is going, "Oh, God damn it! He's waking up from a dream, really?" But really, what he's doing is he's waking up in the execution chamber.
Right.
And he's looking out the window, and in that, the viewing room are all the people that he's killed, including the stars and the weekly people.
Oh, wow.
And we would have done a pastiche of them. And then Dexter would have been read his last rites, close his eyes, and had the lethal injection. But again, had we done that, we wouldn't be doing this now. So thank God that didn't happen.
Well, that's true. I guess that's very true. If he had gone, I just always felt like, keep this in mind years later, if you need it, that to be a true living by the code person, Dexter would have to kill himself because he fits his code perfectly. And it just makes sense that his final act should be him thrusting his own knife. I don't know. Maybe I'm ruining it for all the Dexter fans, but I'm just saying.
You're not ruining it because that doesn't.
Years.
Yeah. You're not ruining anything because that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen, you guys, but I'm just saying, keep it in your back pocket. What are you most excited for fans to see this season without spoilers or just get to the season? Is there a guest star that you're excited to reveal?
Sure. I mean, a lot of this has been in the press. We tried to keep everything a secret, and then everything gets blown up by the internet. First of all, there's young Jack Alcott, who plays Dexter's son, whom we found in the Good Lord Bird, which Showtime had done. He played John Brown's youngest son, and he's just terrific. And plays his son, Dexter's son, Harrison. And he had sought him out. And that comes out, that's in the first episode, so I'm not giving anything away. And then other stuff I didn't want to give away, other people have given away, so it's now out there. And I don't know the difference between an Easter egg or a breadcrumb, which has gotten into our vocabulary. So we know that Jennifer Carpenter's coming back, but that was a secret. And then John Lithgow makes an appearance, the Trinity Killer. And that was a secret. And then somebody saw him in a plane going to Massachusetts. And then he got nominated for an Emmy for Perry Mason. And somebody said, "Were you in Massachusetts just doing Dexter?" And John said, "Yeah, it was great to see Michael and great to see Clyde Phillips. It was great to see Jennifer Carpenter." So the Jennifer Carpenter thing. Yeah.
Oh, good old John.
Yeah. But what happened is, at first we're going like, God damn it. But then we realized it just increased fan interest. They sure showed up for us last Sunday night.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, bringing the old team back together, having Jennifer, Michael, and John, it's a testament to you, especially Clyde, that they want to come back to work and work with people like you, because they could say no very easily. They all have really successful careers. So when I see big stars like that come back, it's because A, the material's good, but B, also the team is good. And they do actually want to see and work with these people again. Thank
you. Well, John and I, Lithgow and I are friends. Our birthdays are a day apart, although he's older than I am, but our birthdays are a day apart. And we communicate all the time. And so he basically was a phone call. I called up and I said, John, here's what's going on. Do you want to come to Massachusetts for a day? And he said, I'm in. Pick a day and I'll be there.
And my last few moments here with you, gosh, I'm just so elated. It's such a great show and I'm so excited for you guys. But I want to know, what advice do you have for your younger writer self? We can go all the way back to Nurse Jackie if you want, or earlier. And actually, let's do this. Earlier seasons of Dexter, now that you're here at the revival, what advice would you have for your younger executive producer, showrunner self?
When I came on as a showrunner on Dexter, I was a really good producer and writer. And I think the show made me better and better. My advice to young writers, to younger showrunners with less experience is, first of all, read everything. Know everything. I get asked all the time, what is a showrunner? And I say, basically my job is to hold 250 soft-boiled egos in my hand all the time. This one's having a baby. This one's getting divorced. This one's father is ill. This one's getting married, whatever it is. And also as a showrunner, nobody holds your soft-boiled ego. Another thing is you got to make decisions. I'll come out of a room, and I've gotten better and better at it, but I'll come out of a meeting or a table read or something, and there's a lineup of department heads holding, which dress should I get? Which truck should we use? Which color should this wall be? You're just going to make decisions, even if you're wrong, because if you don't, then that whole department has nothing to do. And you need to always be moving forward. Again, outline like hell. Understand that even though you know what your ending is, it could completely change. On Nurse Jackie for the finale, which I wrote, we had the whole year, we thought we were doing a different ending. And then we realized, wait a minute, it's not, that ending was about place and we needed it to be about character. We rebroke that. We took a week off, actually. I mean, we shut down for a week, rebroke the last episode, and it was a very successful finale.
And that's so interesting. I was just listening to a podcast that were talking about endings for characters and not plot. And there you just said it. So it must be true.
It's about character. That's why the audience is there.
Exactly. And I think that's why Dexter, again, it's really the only serial killer I've ever rooted for.
Well, there's a reason why you do, which is it's Michael Hall. I mean, why would an audience want a serial killer in their house every Sunday night?
Right.
So first of all, it's Michael Hall. Second of all, it's a pretty interesting idea. But third of all, voiceover. It's a voiceover show. And Dexter is vulnerable. And Dexter is questioning what he's doing. And it makes the audience complicit in what he's doing. And it's a great source of humor in the show too, whether we're playing something that's contrapuntal to what we're seeing or ironic or just plain funny. I mean, there was he was in the back of the boat and I forgot what year, and he was throwing a body into the Miami Bay, and his phone rang and it was his wife, Rita. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just dropping somebody off. I'll be home soon." And so it's actually, for a show about a serial killer, it's actually, we think, pretty humorous too.
It is. He's really funny, but also those moments, the few people he does care about in his life, good guy, right? At the end of the day, he loves LaGuardia, his sister, his wife, his children.
His kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all learned behavior on his part.
Yeah.
Because he said early on in the show, my sister Deb, if I were capable of love, I would love her.
You love her, right?
Yes, but the thing is, he's not really capable of it, and he has to. So it's all learned behavior, and that's what makes him such an interesting and different character.
And that's why I love him as a character, as a person, as the actor, as everything. And Dexter, the first episode is now live on Showtime, but it's Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern, right? Every week.
Yes.
Well, you know where I'll be on Sunday nights. If not in front of the TV, maybe in Massachusetts with you. Clyde, thank you so much for talking with me today. This has been a true honor and pleasure. You have no idea. As soon as I found out that this was an opportunity, I think I screamed a little inside because I'm such a huge fan of the writing of the show and these characters and just your overall work.
Thank you so much, Sharday.
Thanks to Clyde Phillips and host Sharday Sellers. You can catch Dexter New Blood on Showtime. And as always, thanks to you, our listeners. If you liked this episode, leave us a review, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. For news about new episodes and more, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Final Draft Inc., and on Instagram at Final Draft Screenwriting. This podcast was produced by Kayla Guess and co-produced by Emma Vranich. Editing is by Sean Bonnet. Music is by T. Kelly. Thanks again, everyone. Until next time, right on.